The Galactic Survival Institute had one rule that everybody understood across 14 star systems. No weapons allowed during basic training. Period. End of discussion. Commander Vreltalk stood at the entrance of Training Facility 7, all four of his eye stalks twitching with what could only be described as profound regret. The human was arriving today. Just one human. How bad could it possibly be? Spoiler alert. Very bad. Commander, his assistant Plix chirped, skittering over on 6 legs. The human transport just landed. Vreltalk straightened his ceremonial sash and tried to project confidence he absolutely did not feel. 3 months ago, humanity had been accepted into the Galactic Coalition. 3 months. In that time, they'd already managed to accidentally weaponize a food processor, turn a meditation garden into what they called a parkour course, and somehow convince the Zentarii ambassador that fermented grain beverages were a good idea. The ambassador was still recovering. The airlock hissed open. Out stepped Marcus Webb, looking exactly like the psychological profile suggested. Average height for a human, which meant slightly terrifying for most species. Brown hair that seemed determined to defy gravity on one side. A smile that seemed friendly, but had this edge to it that made Vreltalk's primary heart skip a beat. Commander Vreltalk. Marcus extended his hand, right. The human handshake ritual. Vreltalk had practiced this. He wrapped one tentacle around Marcus's hand and shook it with what he hoped was the appropriate amount of vigor. Welcome to Training Facility 7, Cadet Webb. I trust you understand the parameters of this course. Oh yeah, totally. Marcus pulled out a data pad. 2 weeks. Hostile environment simulation. 30 other cadets from various species. Survive, complete objectives, demonstrate adaptability. No weapons allowed. Got it. Excellent. Vreltalk gestured toward the equipment check station. If you'll proceed to inspection, we'll verify you're carrying no prohibited items. Marcus walked over to the scanner platform, and that's when Vreltalk should have known. That's when the universe was basically screaming at him to just cancel the whole thing and send the human home. The scanner beeped. Then beeped again. Then started making a sound like a dying floorjohn beetle. Inspector Krill, a methodical Tarvonian with an excellent service record, looked at her screen. Then looked at Marcus. Then looked at her screen again. Her face, which was usually a pleasant shade of blue, turned purple. Commander, you need to see this. Vreltalk glided over, his good mood evaporating faster than water on a plasma grid. The screen showed Marcus's belongings. Standard issue survival suit. Check. Basic rations. Check. Medical kit. Check. And then, is that a belt? Vreltalk asked. Yes sir, Marcus said cheerfully. Regulation paracord belt. 750-pound test strength. Can be unraveled for rope, cordage, fishing line, tourniquets, trap construction, or about 47 other uses. 47. Vreltalk's eye stalks drooped. The boots, Krill said weakly. Tell him about the boots. Marcus lifted one foot. Standard issue, but I replaced the laces with additional paracord. The metal eyelets can be removed and sharpened for cutting tools or fish hooks. The sole has a tread pattern designed for both traction, and, if you're clever, making friction-based fire starters. This is still within regulations, technically, Krill admitted, sounding like she wished it wasn't. The zipper pulls on his suit are made of flint and magnesium, she continued. The buttons are compressed charcoal tablets. The seams are reinforced with wire that can be extracted and used for snares. His canteen has a built-in filter system that is modified to also function as a crude distillation apparatus. Vreltalk felt a migraine forming in his primary brain. Humans didn't even have multiple brains to distribute their headaches. How did they cope? The medical kit contains standard supplies, Krill went on, but is carrying them in specific quantities that suggest he knows exactly how to synthesize basic explosives from the antiseptic compounds. The bandages are combat grade and could be used as bindings or restraints. The metal case itself has edges sharp enough to function as a cutting tool. That's just smart packing. Marcus protested. Everything has multiple uses. That's just efficiency. His toothbrush, Krill said, has a handle that unscrews to reveal a hidden compartment containing fishing line and 3 hooks. Dental hygiene is important. The dental floss is actually braided polymer wire rated for 50 pounds. Strong teeth, strong wire. What's the problem? Vreltalk held up a tentacle. Cadet Webb. The spirit of the no weapons rule is to ensure fair competition and safety. You are clearly attempting to circumvent this rule. But Commander, Marcus's expression was pure innocence. These aren't weapons. These are tools. The rule says no weapons. I checked. Very carefully. Weapons are defined in Section 47, Subsection 12, Paragraph 6 of the Galactic Survival Institute Code as implements designed with the primary purpose of causing harm or damage. Everything I brought has a primary purpose that's completely legitimate. He was right. Technically. Which was the worst kind of right? The fact that they can be used as weapons is just a secondary characteristic, Marcus continued. Like how a rock can be a paperweight, or a hammer, or, sure, something you could throw at a predator. But nobody's banning rocks, right? Plix leaned over and whispered to Vreltalk, he has a point, sir. Whose side are you on? Vreltalk hissed back. The inspection continued. Marcus's spork was apparently designed with edges that could be sharpened. His emergency blanket had a metallic coating that could be used as a signal mirror or, if crumpled correctly, as a sound amplifier for detecting movement. The stuff sack for his sleeping bag had compression straps that Marcus casually mentioned might work okay as a slingshot if you're really desperate. The water purification tablets, Krill said, are individually wrapped in foil that can be shaped into fishing lures or solar reflectors. His sock, she added, voice rising slightly, has a rock in it. That's for balance. Marcus said quickly. Heavy socks help with circulation on long marches. It's a medical thing. It's a weapon thing. It's a sock thing. Vreltalk made a decision. Cadet Webb, I'm going to allow you to proceed, because technically, you haven't violated any written regulations. However, I want you to know that I am documenting this encounter extensively, and when this training evolution is over, there will be a committee meeting about updating our rules. That's fair, Marcus agreed. So I can go. Yes. Awesome. Marcus gathered his gear. Oh, one question though. Are we allowed to use environmental resources during the training? Like, stuff we find in the simulation zone. Every survival instinct Vreltalk possessed screamed at him to say no. But the rules were clear. The whole point was adaptability. Using the environment was not just allowed, it was encouraged. Yes, Vreltalk said, sealing his fate. That is allowed and encouraged. Perfect. Marcus gave him a thumbs up, another weird human gesture that could mean anything from approval to a threat depending on context. This is going to be great. Underscore 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 3 hours later, Marcus was in the simulation zone. A carefully crafted environment designed to challenge cadets with realistic terrain, weather, and obstacles. 30 other cadets from various species were scattered throughout the area, all working on Objective 1, establish a base camp. Marcus found a nice spot near a rock outcropping by a stream. Good water source. Natural shelter. Defensible position. Within 20 minutes, he'd unraveled half his belt to create a perimeter alarm system using branches and leaves. Anyone approaching would trigger a noise. Not sophisticated, but effective. Within 40 minutes, he'd sharpened one of his boot eyelets into a decent cutting tool and was fashioning a spear from a straight branch. Because apparently, a stick with a sharp point wasn't a weapon if you made it yourself from local materials, within an hour, he'd constructed what could only be described as a fortress of improvisation. His shelter was waterproof, insulated, and had multiple exit routes. He'd created a basic filtration system for the stream water using sand, charcoal from his button stash, and his shirt as a filter cloth. He was humming while he worked. Actually humming. In the monitoring center, Vreltalk watched the screens with mounting horror. Is that a trebuchet? Plix asked. I think it's technically a catapult, Krill corrected. Smaller. Uses that bendy branch as a spring mechanism. What is he launching? Looks like rocks wrapped in leaves. Probably testing range and accuracy. For what purpose? On screen, Marcus finished his test, nodded with satisfaction, and dismantled the device. I don't want to know, Vreltalk muttered. Day 1 wasn't even over yet. The training exercise was 2 weeks long. Vreltalk pulled up the human psychological profile again, and read the notes more carefully this time. Under problem-solving approach, someone had written, subject demonstrates exceptional creativity when presented with limitations. No box exists he cannot think outside of. Recommend monitoring. They tried to warn me, Vreltalk said to no one in particular. On the screen, Marcus had just met another cadet, a Vrelian named Kiptor, who looked confused by the entire conversation. Marcus was pointing at various things around his camp, explaining something with wild hand gestures. Kiptor's translator was working overtime. His offering to trade, Krill said, listening to the audio feed. He'll help Kiptor build a shelter in exchange for information about local plant life. That's actually very collaborative, Plix noted. Then Marcus held up something small and pointed. Even through the somewhat grainy surveillance feed, Vreltalk could see it clearly. A knife. A small, crude, but undeniably functional knife made from a piece of sharpened stone lashed to a handle with plant fibers. Is that a weapon? Plix asked quietly. It's a tool for cutting plants, Reltalk said tiredly. Probably. He made it in under 2 hours. I'm aware. From rocks and plants. Yes, thank you, I'm watching the same screen you are. Marcus and Kiptor shook hands, or rather, Marcus shook Kiptor's primary manipulator appendage. The two cadets seemed to be getting along well. Great. The human was forming alliances. This was going to end so badly. Sir, Krill said hesitantly, should we intervene? On what grounds? He hasn't broken any rules. He's broken the spirit of about 40 rules. That's not actually a violation. Reltalk made a note to retire early. Maybe get that quiet posting at the Galactic Archive he'd always dreamed about. Somewhere with no humans. Just nice, safe, predictable cataloging work. On the screen, Marcus had pulled out his modified toothbrush and was teaching Kiptor about fishing techniques. It was going to be a very long 2 weeks. Day 3 of the training exercise, and Reltalk was seriously considering early retirement. Not just from this assignment. From existence itself, the monitoring room had become a sort of morbid theater where the entire facility staff gathered to watch Marcus Webb systematically redefine what survival training meant. Right now, 12 staff members were staring at screen 5 in complete silence. Is that a crossbow? Someone whispered. No, Krill said, voice flat with exhaustion. According to his explanation to Kiptor, it's a device for projecting cordage across distances to establish zip lines or retrieve supplies from difficult locations. It shoots arrows. It projects specially weighted guidance rods. Those are arrows. Technically, they are sticks with balanced weight distribution. Reltalk rubbed his primary eye stalk. How many improvised weapons, tools, are we currently tracking? Krill consulted her tablet. 47 at last count. Though that number keeps changing, because he shares them with other cadets and they make modifications. He's sharing them. Plix sounded alarmed. Oh yes. He's running what he calls a workshop. Every evening at his base camp. He teaches anyone interested how to maximize resource utilization. Last night, there were 8 cadets attending. Tonight, we're projecting 12. On screen 3, a Flavian cadet named Rix was practicing with what Marcus had dubbed a atlatl, some ancient human throwing device that extended leverage for spear throwing. Rix was terrifyingly good at it. The Flavians had excellent hand-eye coordination, and combining that with human weapon innovation was basically creating the galaxy's most dangerous summer camp. How is he not exhausted? Reltalk wondered aloud. He's building tools, teaching classes, completing objectives, and he still has time to fish, cook, and apparently organize a barter economy among the cadets. Humans require less sleep than most species, Krill offered. And they have something called stubbornness that seems to override normal biological limitations. That's not a real biological mechanism. Tell that to the human. Objective 2 had been released that morning. Navigate to Checkpoint Alpha using only natural landmarks and retrieve a supply cache. Simple enough. The catch was that Checkpoint Alpha was located in a deliberately confusing canyon system designed to test spatial reasoning and persistence. Marcus had arrived first. Of course he had. But instead of just grabbing his supplies and leaving, he'd done something that made Reltalk question every life choice that had led to this moment. He'd left a map, not just any map. A detailed, hand-drawn guide showing the easiest route through the canyons, complete with warnings about unstable rocks, the best spots to refill water, and even little encouraging notes like, you're doing great. And watch for loose gravel here. He's helping the competition, Plix said, baffled. Why would he do that? Human pack bonding behavior, Krill explained. She'd been reading extensively about human psychology since day 1. They form social connections rapidly and often prioritize group success over individual achievement. It's both endearing and tactically brilliant. Every cadet he helps becomes a potential ally. This is a survival course, not a friendship-building retreat. Try telling him that. By midday, 7 cadets had reached Checkpoint Alpha using Marcus's map. 3 of them left thank you notes. 1 left a carefully carved wooden figurine of what was probably supposed to be Marcus, but looked more like a potato with arms. Marcus kept it. Attached it to his pack like a trophy. He's collecting art now, Reltalk muttered. Wonderful. The afternoon brought Objective 3. Secure food for 3 days without using provided rations. This was where most cadets struggled. The simulation zone had edible plants and small game analogs, but identifying safe food required knowledge and careful observation. Marcus had apparently decided that careful observation was for amateurs. Within 2 hours, he'd constructed something the monitoring team was calling the contraption. It consisted of a series of woven baskets connected by channels he'd dug from the stream, creating a sort of automated fish trap system. Water flowed through, fish swam in, couldn't figure out how to swim back out. That's actually genius, Plix admitted grudgingly. Don't encourage him. But the fish trap was just the beginning. Marcus had also identified 17 edible plants, created a smoking rack for preserving meat, and somehow convinced a group of cadets to establish what he called a community garden using seeds from native plants. A garden, Vreltalk repeated. His farming. During a survival exercise. Long-term thinking. Krill suggested. It's a 2-week course. He doesn't know that his garden won't matter. His thinking like those plants will feed people for months. On screen 7, Marcus was showing a nervous Quellan cadet named Pip how to properly clean a fish using a sharpened piece of obsidian he'd napped from rocks near the canyon. His technique was efficient and surprisingly gentle. He was patient with Pip, who kept apologizing for being slow. You're doing fine, Marcus's voice came through the audio feed. First time is always tricky. See, you want to angle the blade like this so you don't puncture anything important. There you go. Perfect. Pip made a happy chirping sound. He's encouraging them, Plix observed. That's nice. He's creating an army, Vreltalk corrected. A well-fed, well-trained, highly motivated army armed with 47 improvised weapons and enough goodwill to follow him anywhere. That does sound bad when you put it that way. Day 5 brought the first major challenge. A weather system rolled through the simulation zone. Nothing dangerous, but cold, wet, and miserable. Perfect for testing cadet resilience and shelter building skills, most cadets huddled in their basic shelters, waiting it out. Marcus threw a party. A party, Vreltalk said, staring at the screen. Explain this to me like I'm a newly hatched grub with no brain development. Krill pulled up the details. He's invited all nearby cadets to his base camp. He's built a large communal fire using a friction-based technique he demonstrated on day 2. The fire is under a lean-to structure that keeps the rain off. He's cooking fish stew in a container he made from heated rocks and woven plant fibers sealed with tree sap. There's singing. Singing. Human tradition during difficult circumstances. It boosts morale. I can see 17 cadets in that shelter. 17. From 9 different species. They're all singing along to something called Kumbaya. It's a classic campfire song, apparently. This is a nightmare. But even Vreltalk had to admit, watching the footage, that there was something compelling about it. The cadets looked happy. They were sharing food, telling stories through translators, and genuinely enjoying themselves despite the miserable weather. Marcus sat in the middle of the group, laughing at someone's joke, showing another cadet how to waterproof their boots using pine sap. He turned a survival challenge into a community building exercise. Sir, one of the junior monitors spoke up hesitantly. Isn't this kind of what we want? Cadets working together, supporting each other, maintaining morale under stress. Yes, Vreltalk admitted. But is supposed to struggle at least a little bit. As if the universe heard him and decided to be spiteful, Objective 4 appeared on the schedule. The big one. The objective that typically eliminated a third of the remaining cadets. Solo navigation to Extraction Point Beta, 20 kilometers away through difficult terrain, within 36 hours, carrying all essential gear. No help allowed. No partnerships. Individual assessment only. Finally, Vreltalk said with satisfaction. Let's see him improvise his way through this while carrying 47 different tools. Marcus looked at the objective notification on his data pad. Then looked at his massive collection of improvised equipment. Then looked at his cadet friends gathered around the fire. All right, everyone, he announced. Trading post is open for business. What? Vreltalk leaned forward. What is he doing? Marcus started distributing his tools. The cordage spear to Rix, who'd become excellent at fishing. The obsidian knife set to Pip, who'd discovered a talent for crafting. The fire-starting kit to Kiptor, who'd struggled with that skill. Tool after tool after tool, each one going to a cadet who'd benefit most from it. He's giving them away, Plix said in wonder. Everything he made. In exchange for what? Nothing. He's just giving them away. Marcus kept a few essentials. His belt, because you always needed cordage. His modified canteen. One knife. The basics. Everything else went to the community he'd built. You guys take care of each other, he told the group. Help anyone who struggles with the next objective. Share what you know. That's how we all make it through this. The cadets chorused agreement in 9 different languages. Marcus shouldered his now considerably lighter pack, and headed out toward Extraction Point Beta. In the monitoring room, absolute silence. He just handicapped himself, Krill finally said. Deliberately. To help the others. Stupid, Vreltalk muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. Strategically nonsensical. Very human, though, Plix added quietly. They watched Marcus navigate through the terrain. Without all his tools, he moved faster, more efficiently. He'd internalized the skills so thoroughly that he didn't need the physical objects anymore. He could make a knife from rocks if needed. Could start a fire with sticks. Could navigate by stars and landmarks. The tools had never been the point. The knowledge was. He reached extraction point beta in 14 hours, well ahead of schedule. Then he did something that shouldn't have surprised anyone by this point, but somehow still did. He started building another shelter. Setting up a rest area. Creating signposts to help other cadets find the location. He's making it easier for everyone else, Reltalk observed. Still. Even now. Should we stop him? On what grounds? He completed his objective. What he does after is technically his own time. Over the next 24 hours, other cadets began arriving at extraction point beta. Every single one found Marcus's rest area, his helpful signs, and often Marcus himself, ready with encouragement and advice. Rix arrived exhausted but triumphant, clutching the spear Marcus had given him. I caught 6 fish on the way here. Fed 3 other cadets. Pip showed up with a small carved whistle they'd made from a branch using the obsidian knife set. It's for signaling, they explained proudly. I taught 2 others how to make them. Kiptor arrived with a functioning fire kit, and had apparently become the go-to fire expert for 7 other cadets. The tools had multiplied. The knowledge had spread. The community had grown stronger. By the end of day 12, 28 of the 30 original cadets had successfully completed all objectives. The highest success rate in Training Facility 7's history. Previous record was 19. The difference was Marcus Webb, who turned a competitive survival course into a collaborative masterclass, in what humans called paying it forward. Final evaluation day arrived. All cadets assembled in the debriefing hall. Reltalk stood at the podium, holding the assessment reports. He looked at the room full of cadets from 9 species, all of whom had somehow bonded into a cohesive unit in just 2 weeks. This has been the most irregular training evolution in Institute history, he began. Multiple protocols were bent, if not broken. The spirit of several rules was thoroughly violated. And somehow, it was also the most successful course we've ever run. He looked directly at Marcus, who smiled innocently. Cadet Webb, you arrived with 47 improvised tools that you claimed weren't weapons. They weren't, sir. You then proceeded to share those tools, teach your skills to others, and generally undermine the competitive nature of survival assessment. I prefer to call it collaborative success, sir. You built a community, instead of competing for individual achievement. Survival is easier with friends, sir. Reltalk felt all 4 eye stalks focusing on the human. The regulations require me to evaluate you on individual performance, resource management, and adaptability under stress. Yes, sir. You've demonstrated all of those qualities, though not in any way the designers of this course anticipated. He paused. You've also demonstrated something the course doesn't officially test for but perhaps should. Leadership. Generosity. The ability to lift others up while advancing yourself. Marcus looked genuinely touched. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. I'm recommending a complete overhaul of Institute regulations. Because of you, we'll need to rewrite the equipment restrictions, clarify tool versus weapon definitions, and probably add 17 new subclauses about improvisation limits. That sounds like a lot of work, sir. It is. For me. Because of you. Sorry, sir. No, you're not. No, sir, I'm really not. Despite himself, Reltalk's mandibles twitched into what might have been a smile. Congratulations, Cadet Webb. You pass. With commendation. You all pass. Now get out of my facility before I change my mind. The cadets cheered. Multiple languages, one shared JOY.AS they filed out. Plix sidled up to Reltalk. You know humans are requesting permanent spots in the training program, right? They want to send more like him. How many more? Hundreds, eventually. Reltalk watched Marcus leave, surrounded by friends from across the galaxy, all laughing and planning a reunion dinner. The human had shown up with 47 improvised tools and somehow weaponized friendship itself. We're going to need bigger facilities, Reltalk said wearily. And much better regulations. Or, Plix suggested, we could just accept that humans are going to human and adapt accordingly. That's not reassuring. It's not supposed to be, sir. It's just reality. Outside, Marcus was teaching someone a human goodbye tradition called a high five. The resulting slap echoed through the corridor, followed by laughter. Reltalk pulled up the retirement application form on his datapad. Then, with a sigh, he closed it. Somebody had to supervise the next generation of human cadets. Somebody who understood what they were capable of when you told them they couldn't do something. It might as well be him. He'd start ordering more monitoring equipment. And possibly some human translation guides for concepts like improvisation, creative interpretation, and the phrase technically legal. The galaxy was about to get very interesting. And it was entirely Marcus Webb's fault.